Please welcome co-founder and CEO of Proteus Digital Health, Andrew Thompson, and CEO of Otsuka Pharmaceuticals, Kabir Nath.
Good afternoon. Just in case it's not obvious, I'm Kabir from Otsuka, and this is Andy from the tech company wearing a tie. We're excited to be here this afternoon to talk to you not only about the fact that the future of medicine is digital, but that future is here already. And hard though it is for the two of us, we're going to try and keep to time so that there will actually be some time for Q&A at the end of our session. And I guess you all know how to do that funky thing with the app to generate questions. It's not a secret that the pharmaceutical industry is facing many challenges. One of the specific challenges today appears to have been postponed till Friday, but nonetheless, we have plenty of others. One of them is the inexorable decline of R&D productivity. In technology, there's been 5 decades of getting cheaper, more successful, more reliable, and quicker, a phenomenon driven by Moore's law. In R&D discovery and development, we've had 5 decades of getting slower, less successful, and more expensive, a phenomenon that some have dubbed E-Room's law for Moore's law backwards. So even as R&D productivity declines, and the billions we have to spend for every approved drug, billions more for commercially successful drugs, we've entered into this vicious circle of unsustainable pricing. So clearly the pharma industry has a challenge. How can we access some of the innovation that tech has learned to access? How can pharma in some way piggyback on the phenomenon that is Moore's law?
So questions at the end, but while you're in the audience, because this is a topic that's digital, keep on tweeting, please. Let's just talk about digital technology. It's enabling one of the most important shifts in human behavior in at least 100 years. So the whole world is shifting the way they interact from models that were about buildings, people, and products into interactions that are increasingly about mobile devices, software, and services. This phenomenon is creating ubiquitous access to information that previously was only available to specialists. So we're empowering populations all over the globe to be their own financial managers, their own travel agents, their own personal shoppers, increasingly their own care coordinators and nurses. And we're enabling the creation of products and services that can be exquisitely tailored to the needs of individual consumers that reduce costs, eliminate waste, and improve satisfaction. So maybe, just maybe, digital technology can be used to create novel pharmaceutical products that expand access, improve outcomes, enhance physician and care team productivity, and make innovation much more sustainable.
In November 2017, Otsuka Pharmaceuticals and Proteus received the world's first ever NDA approval for a digital medicine. And I want to tell you why that's so important. I'm sure there are many people in this room like me who fail to take their medicines on a regular basis. And if, like me, it's a low-dose statin, then missing it for a couple of days or even a couple of weeks is unlikely to land me in the emergency room. For a patient with serious mental illness, it's very different. A patient who is otherwise reasonably well controlled on medicine, if she or he misses that medicine for a period of time, then that may well lead to a recurrent episode, an emergency room admission, and hospitalization. And that's a very bad outcome, not only for the patient and their family, but also for our healthcare system as a whole. Patients know this, families know this, and know that they struggle to know how to intervene. And HCPs and care teams also understand this. But part of the challenge is they have no idea what the patient is doing other than when they're under their direct observation, and clearly that's most of the time. Abilify is one of the leading antipsychotics, very widely prescribed. With Abilify MySight, what's new is when you take Abilify MySight, it communicates directly with your mobile phone It accurately reports the ingestion of the pill. The solution we've designed also captures other physiological measurements and can be used to record patient mood as well. So we believe, and we acknowledge we have work to do to generate the data that will support this, we believe that in the real world, Abilify MySight can help those challenges faced by patients, families, and physicians by engaging patients in their own care, building networks that families can use to see when a patient has missed a dose, and create objective data that allows physicians to determine whether and when to intervene, be that to titrate up, to take someone off the drug, or maybe to change to a different one.
So let me just dwell for a moment here on this idea of helping people with mental illness. Lots of people have a lot of preconceptions about this community. There's often talk about how they're so compromised they wouldn't want to use this kind of system. So some history. We began working with mental health patients in 2009. And we began with a deeply human-centered design process where we partnered with patients who were bipolar or who had schizophrenia. And then we worked with leading physicians who treat these patients. And we designed everything about our system around first patient life flow and then physician workflow. We learned a lot. And what we learned was that patients liked our solutions so much that they didn't want to go back onto drug therapy after a 3-month trial. That the benefits were really, really great, that there were high levels of appropriate drug use, and most importantly, dramatically improved relationships inside families, where all the stress associated with parents working with kids who were bipolar was removed because they knew that they were on drug, and much better collaboration with care teams. So, interestingly, without any of our help, patients started going to the National Association for the Mentally Ill, putting up a booth and telling doctors about Proteus technology and telling pharmaceutical companies that they should adopt it and put it inside their drugs. Otsuka came to us. They had the leading drug for the treatment of mental health patients. It's been used by over 7 million people worldwide. And Otsuka has a deep commitment to serving this community and respecting their needs. A long history of innovating new products and helping patients live better lives. We thought this could be the ideal company for us to partner with to build a digital health solution for these patients. So we started working together in 2013.
As Andy said, Otsuka approached Proteus. And we did because we recognized there had to be a way to combine innovative technology with medicines. And now we've done that. So the approval we received in 2017 was the first for a pharmaceutical solution that's based on innovation in silicon and software rather than the usual novel or tweaking of chemistry and biology. So this is the platform that's driving the release of value in many other industries, and now we, Otsuka and Proteus together, are bringing that as a solution in pharma. A digital medicine solution, the solution that we have designed between us, constitute drugs that communicate when they've been ingested, a wearable device that detects that and tracks physiology, apps that engage patients and, if they choose, families and other caregivers, and analytics that support payers and providers. So we can answer some of the basic questions that we can't now. Did the patient take their drug? It's a pretty simple question, but today we have no reliable or timely way to answer that question for any oral drug. Did the drug work? Or put another way, if the drug doesn't work, is it because the patient isn't, in fact, taking the drug? Similarly, for families, for caregivers, should they intervene? Is there an opportunity to intervene? Should the care team consider what that intervention might be?
So let's talk about the technology that underpins this kind of innovation. What enables this is a new kind of computing. It's ingestible. It's made entirely from ingredients in your diet. Minute quantities of essential vitamins that you need to consume every day to stay alive. It's very tiny. It's the size of a poppy seed. There is no battery, no radio, no antenna, no RFID. It is a completely novel communication architecture, and it was approved by the FDA in 2012 as a medical device. It's approved in China, it's approved in Europe. It's a completely new category. It's remarkably safe. This device is approved with no pregnancy, medical condition, age, or chronicity of use restrictions. It's basically completely free to use across all medical conditions and for all people. To gain an approval for a digital medicine, there is a separate NDA process, a new NDA pathway through CEDA. So you take an approved drug, you add the approved ingestible sensor, you test for stability, bioequivalence, and human factors. This takes about 20 to 30 months, and it costs about $50 million. That may sound like a lot, but in case anyone isn't aware of this, a regular pharmaceutical takes about 10 years and costs about $5 billion. So you get a new NDA, a new NDC code, a new naming convention, and you can create a new business with a much better product with a very streamlined FDA pathway.
Otsuka is a pharmaceutical company. So my colleagues within Otsuka, let alone the broader pharmaceutical industry, frequently ask me how we can have a new business without a composition of matter patent on the active moiety. Well, the answer is there are other things that you can patent other than molecules, and the industry will eventually learn that. You can patent circuits, sensors, formulations, communication methods, analytics, even business models. All this tied to a novel piece of hardware, and we believe we're just at the start of this wave of innovation that can lead to patentable and protectable IP in future.
So we've been testing these products for a very long time. And let's just talk about some of the clinical outcomes. In the last century, the pharmaceutical industry created this enormous amount of therapeutic potential. So for many diseases, we have cures. Many others, we have effective ways to manage them. But a lot of that potential is wasted. Why is that? Well, adherence to drugs, whether people take them or not, is well below 50%. That's all diseases, all conditions, all demographics, all countries. Drugs don't work if you don't take them. In March of 2018, in the Annals of Pharmacotherapy, a study published says that failure to use medicines properly in the United States costs about $525 billion every year. That is 16% of the total budget on not using drugs properly. Should be really clear here. This is not a defective patient problem. This is a defective product problem. Consumers struggle in open-loop systems to do essential jobs, especially if they don't have knowledge, skills, or motivation. And doctors and other care teams can't possibly succeed if they don't have any information about who's using drugs and how they're working. So, digital medicines enable all types of consumers to engage with their own care using the cell phone that's in their pocket. And they empower healthcare providers to deliver care that's specific to each consumer based on objective data about what that consumer is doing. We've done over 120 clinical studies. We have lots of data on this. Here you see a randomized study that was published in the JMAR, Journal of Medical Internet Research. These are patients with high blood pressure, high blood sugar, high lipids. This is the global pandemic, 400 million of these people in China alone, probably 80 million in the US. They have to be on drug for at least 6 months to be in the study, and they have to fail all their endpoints. They're designated as refractory to drug therapy. If you put them on the same drugs in a study, and the drugs are digital, where they get feedback and the doctor gets feedback, but you don't tell anyone what to do, then within 90 days, 98% of the patients are at their blood pressure goal. 0 to 98% by providing these patients with feedback, measurement, behavioral cue. That's a staggering outcome effect. This is, if you look at the population, classic, medically, socially, economically isolated people. Low income, low education, psychiatric comorbidities. Very high net promoter score, 55%. What we see here is a massive impact on the way in which people use their drugs. What we're showing consistently across all the populations we've studied, all of them, is that if you give people a digital medicine, they will take it 85 to 95% of the time without any additional help. And if you add support, you can get that to 99%. These are very, very powerful outcome effects. The insight here that everyone should take away is that appropriate use of medicines is incredibly valuable. What we're showing here is the predictable reduction of stroke and heart attack, and we're not bending the sick care cost curve here. We're blowing it up. We're shifting from building people product into software service mobile platform. We're empowering the consumer not adding expensive tools to the professional.
Let's take another example that speaks actually to the conversation that just took place here around social determinants. In an earlier life, I had the good fortune to ride the HCV development roller coaster. Clearly, the advent of the DAAs has been one of the more remarkable recent transformations in modern medicine. But as you all know, we're barely scratching the surface of treatment for hepatitis C. The reality is that even in the US, fewer than 50% of eligible patients are started on treatment for hepatitis C, because there is a prevailing view that there are reasons to believe they will not be adherent. Concomitant drug use, social status, alcohol, homelessness, serious mental illness. Proteus took that challenge head on and has conducted trials and is now implementing commercial solutions that precisely focus on these high-risk patients who are currently denied access to a cure. So what you see here is 28 patients, 28 homeless patients, all of whom reached SVR12 through the use of digital medicine. What you see at the top is the ability to intervene. Somebody doesn't take their medicine at the normal time, the care team is able to intervene and make sure that they do take their medicine. Noticeable, no surprise, 46% of this cohort had psychiatric comorbidities, and you can see there the other signifiers of social status, social determinants as we called them just now. What does this mean? It means that digital medicines are about focusing on treatment where it actually happens, in the home or in the community. For the first time, physicians know something about what happens the 99% of the time that the patient is not under their direct control or care. This allows patients to engage, their families to engage, and it enables the provider side to shift from just providing care when the patient is there to really determining when is the right time. It actually changes the resource model on the provider side.
So, people talk about drug pricing, and they define drug pricing as the problem. Let me posit to you that it is not the problem. The pharma business model, and especially the innovation model in the industry, is the problem. If it costs $5 billion to create a drug, and then you have 10 years to make a return, then by definition, the price of that drug is going to be high. Pharmaceuticals are a very risky business. R&D costs billions. It's very hard to predict success. When you get a product approved, it can be very hard to get it paid for. Pricing must be high in this model. And by the way, your competitors in the bulk chemical industry are all waiting for a date certain when you lose your patent and they can take over your business. It's a very bad business model.
We see that digital medicines can actually enable us to break that cost curve and to break that equation. We think we can create a more predictable, lower risk path to innovation, because digital medicine products have the ability to measure where they're being used, which helps us to answer, does it work? And that helps to bring us to a true era of personalized medicine based on value, not on volume. When you think about it, advertising used to be pretty crude. Crude demographics, maximizing the delivery of page views to a certain demographic and getting paid for volume. Today, advertising is very sophisticated, relies on analytics that actually deliver precise messages to each of us, and where payment comes through outcome rather than number. Well, the pharmaceutical industry is a little late to this bandwagon, because right now, we still rely on pretty crude targeting, and we get paid for volume of drugs delivered to a large and not very well segmented patient population. With digital medicines, we actually have the ability to incorporate the analytics at the level of the individual patient that gives us precision medicine, and means that in future, we will be paid on value and outcomes and not just on volume.
So, lest anyone thinks that we are saying that silicon and software are going to be the only ways in which we innovate in pharmaceuticals, we're not. What we are saying is that you can continue platform development, innovate the silicon, the software, and the drugs digital medicines deliver huge amounts of new data that is directly relevant to speeding up and making drug development more efficient. So information about how drugs are used, physiologic information about how drug use affects the patient, mobile information about how patients engage with their own care and with their cognitive state, and subjective information about how and why patients use your products. So digital medicine IP and tools will continue to enable the development of high potential molecules and to expand their label claims, and we'll use digital data sets to improve the fidelity of every single clinical trial that gets done. It's a dramatic way to leverage how R&D gets done in this industry.
And to get there, we built on existing technologies and processes, leveraging proven technology where we could, established tablet press technology, semiconductor reel-to-reel systems, global data networks, highly secure encryption technologies. I did say to Andy, I worried that this slide made it look easy. It hasn't been easy. It's been a tough road to get there. We've had to innovate at many stages, but we now have an approved drug. Of course, also very important is privacy. Everything we do is fully HIPAA compliant, and we have a patient bill of rights that makes it very clear that the patient and no one else owns their data.
So, Andy Slevitt talked about this. People talk about big data and AI a lot. Can be a bit misleading, actually, when you apply some of those ideas to human systems. The power of many of these major platforms that you see here is data specificity. It's really important to understand that what we're talking about when we talk about the world of digital is an end of statistics and probability and the emergence of calculus and certainty. Transformative power comes from knowing specific and detailed information about individuals. So companies on this list have lots of data, they have lots of sophisticated algorithms, but their real power is not computational capability. They know about you. They know not just what you buy, but how you go shopping. They don't just know where you vacation, they know how you relax when you get there. They don't just know who your friends are, they know how you interact with them. They don't just know where you work, they know where you want to get a job. And Proteus knows exactly how you use your medicines and how your body responds to them. So just like Amazon phenotypes the way you go shopping and delivers for each of you in this room a precision retail experience, Proteus phenotypes how customers or consumers use their drugs, how they affect their bodies, and enables the delivery of a precision medicine product to every single individual.
120 years ago, Bayer synthesized aspirin in 1899, and that was really the advent of modern chemistry into pharmaceuticals. 1982, biology joined the party, with Genentech bringing forward human insulin. Over the last 20 years, there's clearly been a digital revolution, which is starting to impact healthcare. There are apparently some 325,000 healthcare apps in existence. I'd like to know who counted them, but more to the point, if they determined if any of them were actually useful. Now we have a new breakthrough. Since 2017, digital medicines, the first new category approved by the FDA for 35 years. So we've had 120 years of chemistry, 30-some years of biology, and now we can bring physics, silicon, and software to the party as well to turbocharge the next generation of medicines development.
So it's worth reflecting on what Kabir just said. First time in over 30 years, FDA has created a new category of pharmaceutical with a new approval pathway. In 1982, the last time this happened, the innovator was Genentech, the partner was Lilly, the drug was Humulin, and what came after that is something you all know about. It's an industry called biotech. In 2017, the innovator is Proteus, the partner's Otsuka, the drug is Abilify. What is coming is an industry that we're going to call digimeds. It will happen much faster than people expect because the whole industry will turn. In 1982, nobody in pharma did biology. Everybody in pharma does biology today. In 2018, Otsuka does physics, and they're the only pharma company in the world that really does. But someday soon, every pharma company is going to be doing chemistry, biology, and physics. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
So we're just seeing what floats to the top here.
So do you want to take the first question on being rejected by the FDA?
This is a matter of fact that we know. We did receive a CRL when we first filed Abilify MySite, a complete response letter. I think that was an interesting experience for all three parties, Otsuka, Proteus, and the FDA. So I think the first thing to say is this has been a completely novel journey for the FDA. We've had 5 different divisions involved in the review, and clearly at times it's been a challenge in coordination for them. But what it also told us as the two companies was that there were work that we needed to do. So as you're aware, we did no further clinical trials in order to resubmit, but we did do more work around human factors testing, and it's my belief that we actually filed with a much better solution than we had originally.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's very important to understand that this is precedent setting. It's the first clearance. It involved many divisions, many people in the agency. So I think if we had thought about it, we would not have been surprised to actually receive a CRL the first time around. I'm going to suggest I take this question about patient now has 2 things to comply with, wear a Band-Aid and take their drug. Seems like we've got a double compliance problem. Let's just examine that for a second. We ask a patient, in addition to making use of their medicines, maybe to actually wear a Band-Aid. It's a single-use device. You wear it for a week. You put it on your torso. I'm wearing one right here. I wear it all the time. You can run in it, swim in it, shower in it, do a triathlon in it, and it will stay on your body. It's very low burden, and you can basically not even feel it. Okay, patient puts on a Band-Aid. At that point, what's happened is they're actually now combining with their use of drugs social networking. If you take a medicine, there will be a signal in a network. If you don't take a medicine, there will be a signal in a network. And what that does is to completely change the human dynamic around how patients are expected to interact with their drugs, because for the first time ever, they actually get support. Most patients don't actually understand how to use their drugs, and what you see here is coaching and interaction by care teams and families, which means they have a chance to learn how to do it properly. So no, it's not a double compliance problem. Actually, it's a solution to this problem of how patients use their medicines or don't use them and don't know how to use them properly.
I will take the payer question since it's an obvious question. I'm not surprised it rose to the top. So we are currently in very active negotiation with a number of payers around how to introduce Abilify MySite into their systems. We always knew that this would take time. We got the approval in November. We've been engaging since then. If you remember, we have to demonstrate several things, not only the value proposition to payers, but also how this is actually going to fit into the physician's workflow. As a matter of interest, Abilify's use is over 90% in government channels, Medicare, Medicaid, so it would be our expectation that that's where the bulk of the use is going to be. I think it's also important to say we've always clearly understood that a digital medicine solution is not for everyone. This is about absolutely providers identifying the specific subset of patients for whom this addresses a very specific issue.
So there's a question here, do homeless people typically have smartphones? And how would a digital medicine work for them? Okay, so let's just do some demographics here. Most people who own some type of mobile device make less than $10 a day. They're all over the world. There's about 3.5 billion of them now on the planet. So you would be quite surprised at how many people who you would see as being in rather challenging living situations actually have access to one of these devices. Having said that, we also have a commitment to make sure that we can serve every patient that we believe needs access to these kinds of products. So if you don't have one, we'll loan you one. And we have to do that in a way that makes sure that we don't engage in anything that's inappropriate, but patients are very grateful. And you saw the data here. Look, we did 28 homeless patients in San Francisco, cured them all. And they were incredibly happy with that. And most people, I think, would be.
Which of those do you want to take?
Which one would you like to take next? Who are my competitors? Okay, so I've been lobbed a softball by Kabir. So this is interesting. There are many, many companies that work on different aspects of how you could create digital solutions in healthcare. There is no other company that is able to create an ingestible sensor that's approved by a regulatory authority. So Proteus is the only company in the world that has the ability to integrate ingestible, wearable, mobile, and cloud computing, and to translate that into an end-to-end solution that enables patients and families to make more appropriate use of drugs. I would say that the single most complicated thing we deal with is that many large organizations think that they can do digital themselves. So many pharma companies, many payers, many health systems have teams working on digital projects of their own. And sometimes we meet people who say, well, we don't need your digital medicine because we've already got a website.
We can determine that the right patient took the medication because it's unique to the patient. The patch is unique to the patient. So if someone else takes the medicine and is not wearing the patch, it will not be registered. There's a question on reasonable price. Well,
Okay.
that's too long to answer in 19 seconds, so I'm not going to try.
Okay, why don't we wrap up? Do you want to say something, Kabir?
No, I started by saying we're excited that this future has arrived. It's been an extraordinary journey to get here. The partnership we've developed with Proteus, again, has been a unique feature of that, and we'd be happy to talk more about that. But we're excited about this. We think this does usher in a completely new opportunity in treatment.
Right, and just to echo what he said, the future is here, it's now. There are hundreds of people today using digital medicines in regular commercial settings all around the US, being treated for heart failure, hypertension, hepatitis C, lots of different applications. It's now.
Thank you. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Andrew and Kabir.